Hey everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. For today's 5 on Friday, I'm going to talk to you about 5 middle grade historical fiction recommendations. First up is Echo by Pam Munoz Ryan. In this book, we start with Otto, who meets 3 mysterious sisters and finds a harmonica. From there, the harmonica goes on a journey. First, it ends up with Frederick, who is living in Nazi Germany. He has a birthmark on his face which does not bode well for him, as it makes him stand out. His father then ends up hosting a Jewish musician, which puts even more scrutiny on his family. The harmonica then makes its way to Pennsylvania and ends up with Mike. Mike is living in an orphanage with his brother Frankie now that their grandmother is too sick to take care of them. He worries that his presence will make it harder for his little brother to get adopted. From there, the harmonica ends up with Ivy in California. Her brother Fernando is away at war. She is also dealing with segregation at school. The harmonica ties all 3 of these stories together. I listened to the audiobook of this book and it is fantastic. You get to hear the harmonica music in it, so I would highly encourage you to check out the audiobook of this novel, as I think it really adds to the story to be able to hear the music. I thought it was quite interesting to watch the journey this harmonica went on and how important this harmonica was to each of the kids who ended up in possession of it. It's just really interesting to see the harmonica's journey, and like I said, I highly recommend the audiobook. Book number 2 is Wonderstruck by Brian Selznick. This is a dual perspective novel with the story set 50 years apart. The first perspective is Rose, who has a scrapbook dedicated to an actress. The other perspective is Ben, who dreams about the father who has been absent from his life. Both Rose and Ben feel like they're missing something in their lives. When Ben comes across a clue in his mom's room, and Rose reads a newspaper headline, they both set out to find what is missing. What is interesting about this book is that Rose is deaf and her entire storyline is told in illustrations, while Ben is deaf in one ear and his story is told in words. I think that really adds to the story, and it is interesting to see how you can draw parallels between the 2 stories, even though one is told entirely in illustrations while the other isn't. I loved getting to spend time with both Rose and Ben and getting to see their journey throughout the story and how their hearing issues affected both of them. This is just a really interesting way to tell a story, and I really enjoyed it. Book number 3 is Premeditated Myrtle by Elizabeth C. Bunce. So in this book, we follow 12-year-old Myrtle, who is into all things crime solving. She keeps an eye on all the goings-on in her neighborhood. When she notices that one of her neighbors has deviated from her routine, she sounds the alarm, and it's a good thing she did, because her neighbor is dead. Myrtle feels that her neighbor died under mysterious circumstances, so with the help of her governess, sets out to find out what happened to her neighbor. I thought this was quite the interesting mystery. It was fascinating to see this 12-year-old girl who is not into things that most 12-year-olds in general are into, let alone 12-year-old girls, especially during the time period this story takes place. I really enjoyed getting to see how Myrtle puzzled through the information she came across and how she came to the conclusion that what happened to her neighbor was suspicious, and how she set about looking into things. If middle grade historical fiction mysteries are your thing, you should definitely check this book out. Book number 4 is The Art of the Swap by Christine Carlson Aslan. In this book, we follow 2 girls, Hannah, who is living at the Elms, which is a museum her father is a caretaker of, and Maggie, who is living at the Elms in 1905, back when it was her family home. Hannah is drawn to a reproduction painting of Maggie, the original of which disappeared the day it was supposed to be unveiled. One day, Hannah finds a mirror, and when she looks into it, she sees Maggie. This mirror then allows Maggie and Hannah to trade places. Hannah then decides to use her knowledge of the missing painting and try to prevent it from being stolen. While that is happening, Maggie is getting a shocking introduction into the modern age that is so different from her own. The girls must work together, despite being in different times, to find out the truth of what happened to the missing painting. I thought this book had such a great premise. I love the idea that these 2 girls are using a mirror to trade places, and it's the same place, so they're both familiar with the building, but obviously there's differences too, as for Maggie, she's dealing with it being updated and modern in a museum, and she can't just go wherever she wants. while Hannah is dealing with the fact that there are far more people inside this dwelling than there used to be, and obviously she can potentially go into rooms and places that she's not allowed to go in at the museum. I really enjoyed getting to see the girls work together to figure out what had happened to the painting and how they managed to do that despite being in completely different times. I also thought it was interesting how when they'd swap places, they'd look like each other. So the only person that knew Hannah was not Maggie was Hannah and Maggie. To everybody else, she appeared to be Maggie. And I thought that was an interesting twist. It wasn't just like Hannah showed up and Maggie went missing. I really enjoyed that book. So like Premeditated Myrtle, this is another really good historical fiction mystery with the obvious twist of these two girls being able to swap places, which makes it a little fantastical. So if that's your kind of book, you should definitely check this one out. And lastly, The Haunting of Charles Dickens by Louis Busby. When Meg's older brother Orion disappears, she sets out to find out what happened to him. She ends up coming across a seance that her brother may be involved with, and also ends up crossing paths with Charles Dickens on her travels. Hi. What are you doing? I have a helper. He's not happy. He don't like it when I film. No. Here, go over there. Dickens is a family friend and has noticed that Orion isn't the only child who's gone missing. He is extremely worried that the streets aren't safe for children right now. He is currently trying to solve the mystery of what is going on. If he and Meg work together, maybe they can get to the bottom of things. So I thought this book was quite interesting, getting to see somebody like Charles Dickens, who's obviously a real life person, be a major character in this book, and seeing how that influences the novel, as he's a pretty well-known figure. I loved getting to see how they displayed Meg's love for her family and her brother and how worried she was about him. I also love the fact that Dickens didn't immediately dismiss Meg and did team up with her to try to get to the bottom of things. I thought that was kind of nice, as a lot of times I feel like in books, adults sometimes downplay children's ability to figure things out. And I like that they work together to get to the bottom of this mystery. So those are 5 middle grade historical fiction recommendations I have for you. Do any of you have middle grade historical fiction recommendations? If so, leave them in the comments section below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a pancake emoji, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!